Fitzy, obviously made your 100th appearance for the club last week up at Aberdeen. Disappointing result, but still pleased to reach such a milestone for the club.
Yeah, definitely. When I first come to the club, I wanted to play as many games as possible. In my first season, I probably took me a while to get going, but I managed to hit a decent amount of games. And then last season and this season, I feel like I've contributed a lot more to the team. So now I've really enjoyed it.
Can you remember your debut?
Yeah, it was St Mirren away and we lost 1-0.
St Mirren away, opening day of the 2021 season. Day kind of mixed emotions for you, obviously making that debut but being on the losing side.
Yeah, obviously it was COVID as well, so making my debut for the club, I would have wanted my friends and family to be up here, but that couldn't be the case. And I think we had a tricky start to that season, but then once we got going, we were really good.
28th of November 2020, that date ring any bells with you?
I think I scored my first goals for the club.
Yeah, that's right. So 2 goals and a 4-0 win here against Ayr United in the Cup. Do you remember the goals? You remember them going in, hitting it?
The first one, I'm still claiming it was. I think it took a little nick off the defender and went in, but then the second one, header at the back post, I think might have been.
8 goals in total for the club in those 100 appearances. Any of those 8 sticking in your mind in particular?
Probably the Hibs away one, just because of last season how much it meant, because where we were in the league and going up against a really good side. So yeah, that one in the second half was.
Betfred Cup final, of course, back in February 21. You were an unused sub that afternoon. How was that experience, firstly as a player, reaching a cup final for the club, playing at the National Stadium, but then not having any fans there and maybe not having the atmosphere that a cup final usually would?
Yeah, I think we were obviously really happy to get through to the final. I think we did really well leading up to that. But then, as you say, going to there on 2 different coaches, you get in there and there's no fans, you're walking out, even though I was on the bench, like it still felt surreal. It felt like a 23s a reserve game. But yeah, I think everyone knows if it could have been different that day. It got decided on a set piece, but if we had fans in there, then who knows.
Over those 100 games in your 2.5 years at the club, what's been your most enjoyable moment or most enjoyable game in that spell?
Probably beating Celtic here last season. I think it's so hard when you're coming up against a team like that, and the way we did last season, kept 2 clean sheets against them. I think it just shows you where we are as a club, and obviously this season we've kicked on as well, but I just think for what it meant, and I think that was our first win of last season as well, which got us kick-started our season really, and I think that was massive. But yeah, I'd have to go with that one.
Obviously now you're in your 3rd season at the club. You've seen a lot of turnover of players and staff. Is there any players, any members of the coaching staff that you've kind of grown closer to or made friendships with that you'll take away from the club going forward?
I think there's you've got quite a core group of players. Everyone gets on really well. That's the one thing that every player who comes to the club says. The whole group, the changing room's unbelievable, and I think that's testament to the staff here that have created that, and then the players as well who have stayed. But obviously you've got club captain Nicky Devlin, you've got Holty, you've got Pitts, Andrew Shinney, the experienced boys who lead the group, and kind of that's kind of like who I've kind of attached myself to, and tried to become another leader in the dressing room to help kick on the group for the rest of this season.
In your first season here, the club finished 6th place. Last season, of course, just missed out in top 6, but finished the season strongly to finish in 7th. This year, reeling with a good chance still of another top 6 finish. Just how big an achievement would that be for yourself personally and for the club if it were to hang on, get that top 6 and maybe even push for that European place? Yeah,
it's massive. Look, like my first season, we did really well, went on that unbeaten run. Last season, we were really unlucky to lose out. I think it was like by a point or a goal or whatever. But this season, I think it's the toughest yet since I've been up in Scotland, of how competitive the league is, where there's about 6 or 7 teams who are vying for that 4th, 5th and 6th spot, and it's like you win 2 games, you're right in there, you lose 1, you're out of it. So you've just got to keep riding the waves, try and be there or thereabouts by the end of the season. But ultimately we sat down here as a group at the start of the season and said, if we beat last season's points tally, that gives us a great chance of getting top 6. So that's what we've done so far up to now. So now we've got to carry on that momentum and hopefully push for the top 6.
There must be a little bit of you that finds it a little bit surreal now when you moved up here to Livingston to now be sitting here 2.5 years later talking about potentially clinching a European place. That must be a fantastic feeling for yourself to have come into the club, grown as a player, but also potentially take the club into a European spot.
Yeah, I think that's what everyone wants as well. We sat down in here, and what our boys' aspirations for the league for the season going forward. It was either a cup competition, getting into Europe, top 6, or beating last season's points tally. So I think everyone knows it'd be really special for a club like Livingston. Like, no disrespect to us, we are what we are, but if we can get into Europe, then that's massive for us and the fans.